Hello, and thank you and welcome to Paul Mann for joining me today. Paul, as we know, is the CEO of ASP Isotopes. Paul, thank you for being here. I know what an incredibly busy time you've had recently. And I'm wondering if you can just touch on the recent highlights that you've had press released over the last month, please.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And it's been a very, very busy last 6 months. As we kind of said in our press releases, we've actually completed 2 plants, and we now have 3 plants in South Africa that are ready to start producing isotopes or in commissioning stages of producing isotopes. So in August, we finished our ytterbium-176 plant, and that's a really important isotope for the world because Novartis's new oncology drug, Pluvicto, and a number of other new drugs require ytterbium-176 as a feedstock to make the active ingredient lutetium-177. And so that plant is now being commissioned in South Africa. Hopefully, it'll start producing product in the first half of next year. And we've got a lot of interest in that plant from customers. That plant's actually probably sold out already. We'll probably need to build a second plant almost straight away because of the demand from customers for ytterbium-176. And the second plant we just completed actually this week was silicon-28. And silicon-28 is largely viewed as being essential for quantum computing. If you remove the 29 isotope from silicon, you can make, or it's believed you can make semiconductors multiple times faster, less cooling, less heating problems. So they stay cooler, less energy needed to cool them down. And so for next generation semiconductors for artificial intelligence and advanced kind of applications, the world kind of thinks silicon-28 is potentially something needed for that. So they're the 2 plants that we have just finished. And then, we've been working on trying to enrich uranium for some time. Uranium's needed, more enriched uranium is needed by the world, generally speaking. If you look at uranium markets, the world is clearly short in terms of supply. Only a few countries in the world can enrich uranium. So we've recently signed an MOU with TerraPower, which is a US-based SMR company to basically enrich uranium for them. And we've also signed an MOU with Nexa. That's the South African Nuclear Energy Corporation. And they have a site in South Africa that is essentially a plug-and-play location ready for us to go. There are very few of these in the world. If we wanted to build a similar site in the United States, it'd probably take us 10 years. So to have that head start is amazing. And to have also an organization of 1,600 employees there who have got a lot of the skills and capabilities to help us build this plant is also really essential. So it's been a really busy last 6 months, but we're always busy and we're pushing forwards and looking forward to next year now.
So a lot of attention is obviously on the uranium enrichment side. And you touched on that announcement yesterday on silicon-28, which obviously, to recap, was on schedule and the capacity was 5 times greater than you originally predicted. There's a lot in the isotope side on the medical side, particularly in areas such as oncology. Could you touch on that, the divisions within sort of PET Labs as well that are already revenue earning?
Yeah, so PET Labs is doing great. We're actually tripling the size of PET Labs over the next 2 or 3 years. PET Labs is the largest supplier of PET isotopes to sub-Saharan Africa. So PET isotopes are required for a PET scan when you have some form of oncology or a tumor or cancer. You often use a PET scan to diagnose that cancer. And so PET Labs is the leading supplier of fluorine-18 to sub-Saharan Africa. We actually, the business right now is doing as much as it can. So we've added a second cyclotron to our facility in Pretoria, and we're going to add a cyclotron into Cape Town. So that'll go from 1 cyclotron to 3 cyclotrons over the next couple of years. So the second cyclotron's coming on stream probably in the first quarter next year. It's been built. It's in facility waiting for our final regulatory approval. We think we can take the PET Labs business model and replicate it elsewhere in the world as well. It's a pretty unique business. It generates a 70% gross margin, and if you can generate a 70% gross margin in South Africa, where the GDP per capita is $6,000, we think we can do elsewhere in the world. So PET Labs is a great business, and Curtis Kemp, who's the CEO of PET Labs, is looking forward to expand that business around the world. And then the semiconductor business you mentioned, that's potentially a huge opportunity for us. And our process is very unique in that our ASP process allows us to enrich light isotopes as well as heavy isotopes. When you think about a traditional centrifuge in Russia or the United Kingdom, they can only enrich heavy isotopes. You have to have a mass over sort of 100 and ideally more like 300. Our process allows us to enrich light isotopes. So silicon has a mass of 28, and with 4 hydrogen atoms, it's 32. And so that allows us to enrich silane, which is what actually semiconductors want. And so there's a huge amount of interest in the silane we're able to produce. We've signed 2 contracts. One's with a large US semiconductor company. The second is with a large global industrial gas company. And we've got a lot of interest from other companies about our potential to produce silane. And so that plant started up this week. Mentioned it was 5 times the original stated capacity. We during the construction, we realized the demand was going to be a lot more than we initially anticipated, and so we decided to actually increase the capacity of the plant while we're building it. And so that's the reason for the increase in nameplate capacity. But yeah, no, it's very, very exciting time for both businesses.
And I was honoured to, when I was in South Africa the week before last, to visit that and see it in action, which was amazing. Um, the processes obviously come under a lot of sort of scrutiny. Can you talk a little bit about where you are around the IP and the patents that exist there? How does that work, particularly with the sensitive nature? You've alluded to Russia, the sensitive nature of the work that you do, please.
Yeah, so we'll never apply for a patent on our overall process. By doing that, we're basically showing the world how to do what we do. And there's a lot of countries that don't obey patents and look at patents, and they're exactly the countries we don't want to show how to do what we do. And so our technology is closely guarded and managed under what's called a comprehensive safeguards agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA. And so, we're not allowed to show people how we do it. I'm not allowed into the facility, for example, by myself. I'm not a South African citizen. To actually look at our technology, you have to be a South African citizen to be able to go in there and be approved by the Non-Proliferation Council of South Africa. There's no telephone lines or internet lines into or out of our closed facilities. All the hard disks are stored in a safe at the end of every day and put inside a second safe inside a metal room. We actually had a journalist turn up at our plant a couple of weeks ago, wanted to try and get pictures and wasn't allowed in. We have very strict security around our facilities. And so, in a way, it's, patent lasts 20 years. Comprehensive safeguard agreement lasts forever. So I'm not sure which is better, but that's how we operate. We will apply for some patents on parts of our plant. So, for example, the compressors we've designed for our silane plant are very unique. They're very novel. There's some IP around those compressors. We've actually designed the valves that go in the plant because we found that commercial valves you buy off the street aren't really suitable for use in the mixes of gas that we use. So we designed our own valves and molar mass meters. We have to measure very, very accurately what the mass of the gas is going through the plant. And again, commercially available molar mass meters we found weren't suitable for the job. So we'll patent those. But in terms of the overall process, we won't patent that. We'll rely on the comprehensive safeguard agreements of the International Atomic Energy Agency to protect that.
On the idea of just want to bring us back to the enrichment process with uranium. Comparisons have been drawn between your process and AVLIS. Is it possible you could comment on that, please, Paul?
Well, I can't really tell you what we do because obviously we're under comprehensive safeguards agreement. But that's a little bit like comparing a 2024 car with a 1990 car. My first car, I think I got in 1992. It had 4 gears. It had a radio. I think it had a cassette player. The windows you wound down with a handle on the door. Now you have Bluetooth. The car drives itself. Basically, you have 10 gears. It's automatic. It's very, very different technology. So what's happened over the last 30 years in terms of laser technology? Well, lasers have moved forward a lot in the last 30 years. The lasers are now much more powerful than they were 30 years ago. So, for example, 30 years ago, people used copper vapor lasers. Now we use LIAG lasers. They're much higher repetition rates. Allows us to do a lot more that we couldn't do 30 years ago. Also, we spent a lot of money and time looking at beam shaping. So how you combine the beams together to make it so the beam travels through a vapor of gas more accurately. And we've done a lot to do with the vessel and how we actually vaporize the gas too. So, I say comparing what we do to AVLIS is, it's probably incorrect. They're both used as lasers, but very, very different kind of technologies.
So, the main setups in South Africa are your Nasdaq listed stock. Can you talk a little bit about where you have offices globally, and also what you have on the ground in South Africa as well?
Yeah, so we're a Nasdaq listed company. I think we're incorporated in Delaware. Our headquarters are Washington, D.C. We've actually only got 2 employees in the United States, so we don't have much infrastructure in the US. And we would like to build more in the US. We absolutely want to build these plants in the United States. It's just, getting permits, permissions, licenses to do things in the US is often more onerous than it is elsewhere in the world, just because of the bureaucracy and the political process of how you do things. So we've got about 130 employees in South Africa. About 20% of them have got PhDs, half have got advanced degrees, and we have a couple of offices in South Africa, and we have 3 manufacturing plants in South Africa. And so, again, if you turn up to a manufacturing plants or offices, you won't be allowed in. You have to get permission to go there before you turn up. And we have our ytterbium-176 plant, we have our silicon-28 plant, and our carbon-14 plant, and all are come under comprehensive safeguards agreements with the IAEA, and they're great locations. They're good buildings. One of the problems of South Africa is the load shedding. So our ytterbium-176 plant and carbon-14 plant don't suffer from load shedding. We have 24/7 power in those plants. Our silicon-28 plant does come under load shedding, so we have 1.5 megawatts of diesel generation capacity at that plant in case power stops. Yeah, we've been very fortunate in South Africa to find the employees, the staff, the buildings we need. I don't think we could have built this business elsewhere in the world so quickly. It's been really fortunate. It's been, and I was with the South African government last week just saying just how grateful we are for the support they've given us and for the support that country's given us. I'm extremely optimistic about South Africa and Africa as a continent in the future. And yeah, we've been welcomed there with open arms by the people and the government.
And I got to say as well, I was blown away by the meetings we had with the South African government when I was there a week and a half ago with the Nexar agreement. It's a very high caliber of folk with a great relationship with yourselves. And great, great.
I think the new government is going to be really amazing for South Africa. It's exactly what the country needs.
Yeah.
To have, when you think about what Minister Ramaphosa has done over the last 6 months, he's basically put the infrastructure required into the grid to stop load shedding. He's building a new nuclear platform. He wants to build another 2.5 gigawatts of nuclear energy. If you had more energy in South Africa, you would mobilize an entire workforce to do a lot of the manufacturing jobs that are currently outsourced to Asia. And so I think, it's got so much opportunity there over the next several years. And I think this new government's going to be great.
As well as very good management ownership of the shares, you have a very high pedigree shareholder list of institutions from BNP, BlackRock, Marshall Wace, Philly Financial, Cap. I mean, the list can go on. Can you just talk a little bit about the trip that took place with institutional investors? I know that there was a trip that takes place and the sort of access that you're happy to give to institutional investors if they want to come over and see ASP Isotopes.
Yeah, I said we have actually in the last 2 weeks we've had 22 investors come through South Africa to visit the facility, as well as 3 companies come and visit us, 3 prospective customers or current customers come through and visit us. And we're always happy to host investors. I say over the last 2 years we've had to obviously. When you start a small company up, you take money from wherever you can get it. And over the last 2 years, we've shifted that investor base from being very much more kind of retail and families and friends to an institutional investor base. And obviously, they want to come and visit our facility in South Africa, and so we're more than happy for that. And yeah, we'll host another trip in the first quarter next year for people who want to come and visit us. And yeah, it's a direct flights from Atlanta and Newark and from London. Stay easy to get there.
Yeah.
And
so any potential institutional investors who are listening to this, we should be able to contact our team and be able to arrange that.
Exactly. So either contact yourself, Nick, or contact.
Yeah, no, I would be more than happy to pass them on to you. That's fantastic. Well, listen, Paul, I've taken enough of your time already. Thank you very much for this very informative update, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick.